Texans lose to the Jets. They fall to 6-3. Ugly loss for the Texans. Let's just get right into it. Landry Locker, Cody Stoots with you. The Texans right now are 6-3. I'm just going to start this thing off with a statistic. The Texans are 6-3. They've played 9 ball games. They're in firm control of the AFC South. And I don't look at this as much perhaps in football as I do in baseball. But the Texans' point differential right now through 9 ball games is +1. It's +1. They have outscored their opponents by a combined 1 point. And let me just kind of put that in perspective for you. If the playoffs started today, this is what the other playoff teams' point differential looks like. The Bills are +84 through 8 games. The Steelers are +68 through 8 games. The Chiefs are +50 through 7 games. The Broncos are +53 through 8. The Ravens are +33 through 8, and the Chargers are +41 through 7. So that is an interesting statistic to start this off as we talk about a 6-3 team with some weird feelings. Cody Stoots live from New York. Your overall thoughts of where this team sits at 6-3, and we'll dive deep into what went wrong last night. And you could honestly probably just play some of the old shows because it's been kind of more of the same in what we've seen the last few weeks.
The fear for this Texans team as you started to watch them get to where they were and as they got to 6-2, the fear was, man, this team is a mess that has been able to survive, and they're just nowhere near where any of us thought they were going to be from a top end. What's the ceiling? And that floor is a lot lower. That was the fear as you kind of watch these games. But the Texans escaped and they squeaked by and they piled up a win and they bounced back from losses with victories. And then Thursday night happened. Last night happened. And all your worst fears are confirmed. This is not a good football team. Okay? This is not a good football team. They do not have great football team potential right now. And this is a team that is an absolute mess on offense. There's nothing that they do easy on offense. And I watch NFL games every week where even the dopiest, dumbest quarterbacks and coordinators can make it look easy for their quarterback. And instead, the Houston Texans make it look incredibly difficult for CJ Stroud, to the point where if he's not perfect, they can't move the ball through the air. They can't consistently do anything on the ground. Joe Mixon makes things happen for a quarter and a half, and then that just disappears. Everything that you thought was like, maybe it's not really that bad. Maybe they can just fix that. No, it's as bad as it's looked at its worst, and they're closer to that team than they are to a team that's capable of doing something impressive this season.
They remind me a lot of, and I don't have to go too far to look for a comparison. They remind me a lot of the 2018 Texans. I mean, that's what this team reminds me of. They remind me of the 2018 Texans. There's no creativity on offense. The quarterback is depended on to overcome coaching and a bad offensive line. And the defense, I think the defense is a lot better. I think the defense is actually well coached. But that team, you didn't look at that team and say, well, this team really has a chance to get something done. They went 11-5, and they lost in the first round of the playoffs because they physically got their ass whooped by a team that they split the season with. And that's where I sit right now. Does that mean that that's where they're going to end up? I don't know. I thought this was a really, really bad, perhaps enlightening week for the Texans for a number of reasons. Number one, I expected this loss. This did not feel like a good layout for the Texans to go win a game against the Jets. So it's not necessarily that you lost. It's the way you lost, and it's really kind of just the way that the entire fan base and the media was gaslighted by DeMeco Ryans, Bobby Slowick, and really even CJ Stroud, although I think that's kind of a thing of the past. But DeMeco Ryans goes up there and he gets a little bit sassy, and he's talking about, let's talk about the positive things that Kenyon Green did. And, you guys want to be negative and yada, yada, yada. And I don't even think that they deal with an ounce of the negativity. The Jets were getting booed on the first play of the game. And their stadium was half empty. And the Jets, like, if you want to see what negative is, go sit in New York. But you do all that, and then you put Kenyon Green back on the football field to protect CJ Stroud, and immediately you give yourself really no chance at building momentum, because Kenyon Green gets beat twice for a sack. He gets beat and a fumble is forced. On the play he got hurt, he fell into CJ Stroud, or CJ Stroud fell into him. It's embarrassing that they're even willing, or that they're even to the point where Kenyon Green goes out there. And I try to convince myself, okay, well, he's your backup guard. Jared Patterson's going to be the starting guard when he comes back. At this point, Kenyon Green doesn't even need to be on the team. Like, it's almost cruel to him. And then you see Kendrick Green go out there, and you don't expect a lot from him, but he was clearly better. In the last 2 weeks, the Texans have scored 2 touchdowns on legitimate drives. On the legitimate drives, they've scored 2 touchdowns. They've scored 3 total. One of the touchdowns came on a 7-yard drive after Anthony Richardson threw an interception. But on the 2 drives, it's been when Kenyon Green has been on the bench. As a matter of fact, you scored a touchdowns on the first 2 drives that Kenyon Green was benched. So the gaslighting by D'Amico Ryans, it was actually kind of embarrassing last week. It's one thing when you're winning to do that and to protect players, but it was actually kind of embarrassing. And I just mentioned 3 touchdowns. I think that's the total touchdowns that the Texans have in the second half this year in 9 games, if I'm not mistaken. I remember your stat.
They haven't scored a touchdown in the second half since New England. Like, the offense is a disaster. And you're right, D'Amico Ryans they had the debacle against the Packers where it was apparent that they couldn't block that day. And then D'Amico Ryans went to the podium, and it was everything's on the table, and that's not good enough. And we've been seeing that for a couple of weeks. Then they went up against the Colts, and statistically were worse, allowed more pressures and more consistent pressure. And then, like you said, he went to the podium and was like, hey, well, you talking about the bad stuff. Like, let's talk about the good stuff. And it wasn't just Kenyon Green. He propped up the whole offensive line. Then they go out there and just absolutely crap the bed like they did last night with this offensive line. 8 sacks. CJ Stroud's running for his life, and they can't get anything going on offense because every play turns into the quarterback trying to save his own ass because those 5 guys can't block. They're giving different answers to why things aren't going right. Like, there's nothing that is working on this offensive line. Kendrick Green, you talked about it, gets inserted. They go on the 98-yard drive. Guess what happened to him a couple of drives later? He started giving up pressures. He started giving up a sack. Like, they are a disaster, and it just totally ruins any opportunity to get anything going on offense. I don't care if they had Nico Collins, Jerry Rice, and Calvin Johnson out there at receiver. CJ couldn't get him the ball. They couldn't get him the ball because he was running for his life. And, like, yeah, he missed a throw here or there. Should he have hit Mechie in the end zone? Should he hit this guy in that thing? Yeah, he probably should. But he also shouldn't have to be perfect to move the ball through the air. Like, he has to be perfect the way that they operate this offense and how crappy they are blocking. If he's not perfect, they can't throw the ball.
His spirit is crushed. Like, he's not even there. And on the chat, someone says it's not just one guy on the offensive line. I don't disagree with you, but you can't change everything at this point. Like, you're kind of dug in. And when it's blatantly obvious that someone can't even be a serviceable offensive lineman, you get him off the field. Tytus Howard thing is a whole different issue on itself. And I thought Tytus Howard's comments were crazy. And I think you have them. Let's just hear Tytus Howard and how he looked at this game and how he assessed the Texans' performance, in which CJ Stroud was running for his life and sacked 8 times. Here's Texans right tackle Tytus Howard.
Came down to it. As a group up front, we just had one-on-ones. Just didn't do good enough.
And they weren't showing anything different. They ran the defense they normally run, all the stuff looks.
They didn't even run that many stunts. Just got one-on-one. That's the biggest thing.
When you have game like this collectively as a line and everybody that pass protects, what do you guys do to try to prove this and be able to have better performances going forward?
Really just got to take what we get in that practice and apply it to the field. And we're really not doing that right now.
What?
It started off early in the game. We letting the quarterback get hit too much. Trickle down. Made a slow start for us. The run game was going, but, I mean, the pass pro wasn't there. And that's been our problem. So we got to fix that.
Do you feel like it is fixable?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's fixable. It's just like Nico said, man, we got to go out there. We knew what we was going to get. We got to win the one-on-ones. I mean, that's where they had us, our group. We knew what we had to do. We knew what we was going to see. We just didn't win the one-on-ones across the board.
It's something that when something starts kind of going bad, everything kind of folds in on itself, and it makes it tougher to kind of set level.
Yeah, man, you just got to move on, man. Like, if something bad happens, you just got to not let that trickle down and keep happening throughout the game. I know my mentality is if something bad happens, I'll try to push it away and don't let that affect the rest of my game. I always went by that. But as a group, we just got to be better, man. We haven't played to the standard that we need to play to in the past game. Of course, we've been running the ball, but, I mean, you got to be able to throw the ball to win. And like I said, quarterback's getting hit too much, so we got to be better.
What's the most frustrating part about it?
The most frustrating part is that, man, we the better team. We let that game get away from us, especially in the second half. We didn't come back out with the same intensity we had like in the second quarter. So we just let a team steal a win from us. Kudos to them. The boys fought hard in the second half, but we just didn't finish the game right.
Steal a win, huh? Steal a win for the better team. Great job for the Jets. Steal a win for the better team. What a joke. What a just absolute joke of a comment. You're not the better team. You know what the other team did after Aaron Rodgers got his ass kicked for a half? They sacked up and started blocking, and the quarterback got rid of the football because their offensive coordinator is not an idiot. Okay? Like, that's what happened. And then you got to win the one-on-ones. We didn't see anything different. Okay, so you guys are the issue? Like, and then well, we're not doing what we see at practice. What? What do you mean you're not doing what you're doing at practice? You go out there and just do something different? Like, how does that hapen? Like, it's just Landry, you can't fire the entire offensive line.
Let's just be serious. Like, he's not. Tytus Howard doesn't make sense when he talks. I'm not trying to be a jerk or anything, but like if you just like nitpick every and that's the only option. But like in 5-minute media sessions, Tytus Howard will say 9 different things. So it's not what we do in practice. It wasn't stunts. It was just one-on-one. So I mean, does he mean that he's winning his one-on-ones in practice? Like he's not. He doesn't make a lot of sense whenever he tries to explain what's going on. And my question is, like, what can you do on this offensive line? Obviously, Kendrick Green's not stepping back on the field. And if he does again, then that's malpractice. I don't even know that he should put a uniform on, to be honest with you. Do you just move Kendrick Green? I mean, at this point, I'm almost willing to see what Blake Fisher looks like on the right side. Like, do you put Blake Fisher on the right side and put Tytus Howard at guard? Like, I'm not with all this extra time. I think that all bets can be off on this offensive line. Like it's worse this year than it was last year. That's the problem. Like it's worse this year than it was last. And if the pass blocking is as bad as it's been since Deshaun Watson was here. So I think there might need to be multiple changes on this offensive line. Does that solve the problems? I don't know, but there's
something.
There's a serious problem from the top. Like D'Amico Ryans is saying, let's focus on the positives after Kendrick Green, which is fine. Coaches are going to say what coaches say, but then you see Bobby Slowick call games as if he's not even aware that he has a bad offensive line. Have they run any screens this year? Like I'm just asking. Like, has there been any screens to Joe Mixon? Does it happen? There's really no quick plays. They get sacked out of field goal range damn near every time on third down. Like it's almost like field goals that like from the 40s become field goals in the 50s. damn near every time. For whatever they're doing on third down, other teams clearly know it because they get sacked out of field goal range and they get field goals pushed back to where it's not even like CJ Stroud's holding the ball. It's like a complete jailbreak. So whatever they're doing on third down, like there's some tape sessions going on. I don't know what Bobby Slowick did at PFF. I'm starting to wonder if he really actually watched film, because the second half stats are absolutely embarrassing. They're absolutely pathetic. But if they're going to continue to do what they're doing on this offensive line, and they're going to continue to make adjustments the way that they've made adjustments, then I just hope CJ Stroud makes it through this season healthy. And I don't even like putting that in the atmosphere, but at this point, you've crushed the guy's spirit. Like, we saw him throw his helmet in the first quarter of the game against Green Bay. And then they find a way to win a game against the Colts. And it's like, yeah, we did a good job. No, you didn't. You did a worse job. CJ Stroud did a better job of handling it. And that's where we're at right now. It's about, and we talked about this before this game. This isn't some hindsight crap. And there's something else Nico said that I want to get to in a second as well. But this is not hindsight. Like, this is clear as day. You're not going to fix all the offensive line issues, but if you just keep doing it, this is what's going to happen. And there's two things that I think are interesting about this thing when it comes to DeMeco Ryans. Number one, I don't think he would let this happen on his defense. So if you were a guy that was reluctant about DeMeco Ryans, and for the record, I would not trade DeMeco Ryans for any coach in the NFL. So let me just make that clear. I would not trade DeMeco Ryans for any coach in the NFL. Period, point blank, end of story. Would not do it. But if the equivalent of what's happening with this Texans offensive line was happening on DeMeco Ryans defense over the stretch of time that it's happened, I feel very confident, because he's done a pretty good job on his defense, regardless of who's out. I feel very confident that DeMeco Ryans would not let this just continue going on. I feel very, very confident that he would not let that happen. So that's that. Do you agree with that?
I do. I just, how does he go and get through to the 5 offensive linemen that are going to play and the offensive coordinator to make them all understand?
Change them. If that means Blake Fisher to tackle and Tytus Howard to guard, okay. If that means Blake Fisher and Jared Patterson starting, okay. If that means Jared Patterson at center and Juice Scruggs at left guard, okay. Do something. Change something. You got to do something. And Bobby Slowick's got to change the way he calls plays. Here's the other thing DeMeco Ryans.
One more thing about Slowick. They tried like early on in the game, like they did like some pocket moving stuff. They ran a freaking bootleg into pressure because Tytus Howard just gave up on his block. Like that's a Slowick trying and the offensive line not getting it done. Like, it's just, they're so bad, and it's like, what can DeMeco Ryans do to get it through their skulls that they are ruining this team?
Here's the other thing that DeMeco said that I thought was just absolute garbage, and I thought this was I thought this was very, very low hanging fruit, and not true by DeMeco Ryans. When they ran the trick play with Joe Mixon, they decided to throw a fade to CJ Stroud and take the ball out of CJ Stroud's hands and just have Joe Mixon throw a fade to CJ Stroud. DeMeco goes up there and says, well, it's a trick play. If it works, everybody says it's great. If it doesn't, then yada, yada. That's low-hanging fruit. I don't think there's too many people that would have wanted to throw a fade to C.J. Stroud with Joe Mixon inside the 10-yard line. I'm sorry. So you could go for it on 4th and 40 and say what DeMeco said. And to a certain point, he may be right on certain situations, but there's also a lack of credibility on offense, because the entire fan base, or the large majority of the fan base, has been saying Kenyon Green stinks. They've been saying that for weeks. They've been saying Kenyon Green does not need to start. He does not need to be on the field. That's what's been said, man. And it sucks for him. He's been accountable with it. I almost feel sorry for him. I almost feel like they're putting him in a bad situation. But the entire fan base has said that. Like, to sit there and say, well, if it doesn't work, you threw a fade to CJ Stroud with Joe Mixon. Like, there's not, if you would have gone up to your entire fan base, Madden style, and you would have put fade to CJ Stroud. Let's say you have 3 plays on the screen and fade to CJ Stroud with Joe Mixon is there. There's not too many people that are going to do that. So I think it's kind of low-hanging fruit, a little blowhardish, a little Bill O'Brien-ish, honestly. Like, DeMeco this week was kind of Bill O'Brien-ish. And let's just talk about the positives and
Dismissive of criticism.
Dismissive of criticism. I'm not sitting there saying he has to flip a table, but he was, and then everybody's like an expert type of thing. No, you threw a fade to CJ Stroud, coach. Let's be serious.
Everything about that play was total bullshit. From the process that leads you to calling that play at that moment, which is the indicative element of idiocracy that is Bobby Slowick when he pulls some of this shit out of his ass and just tries to just outthink everybody when they can't execute basic stuff. Like, it's bad process for the play. Then the play, there's no disguising. Like, when Joe Mixon gets the football from the center, like, there was no disguising what they did. CJ Stroud was the only option on that play. When Mixon goes right, it's not like he's going to turn around and fire some bullet back to the left to tank Dell. That's a dumb design. DeMeco Ryans admits that they didn't get the look they wanted, which how many times are we going to hear that? I never hear other teams say, oh, well, we didn't really get the look we wanted on that offensive play, and that the play wasn't executed well. So it's like, if you can't do that, why are you calling it? Stop trying to do calculus when you can't do basic math.
And I think you go back to the Green Bay game where a lot of people were frustrated with the play at the end of the game, and rightfully so. And I asked Nico about it, and I asked Slowick about it. Kind of got gaslighted. D'Amico said, the goal is to complete the pass. Okay, that's the goal of every play. Like, you were trying to complete the pass with Joe Mixon too, so you can say that. But Bobby Slowick, he gives us the explanation, which is 3.5 minutes, which I appreciate because he's saying he screwed up and then he's explaining it. But he's also saying, we thought they were going to give us this look and they gave us another look, which is kind of telling. And I think it's kind of indicative of what Bobby Slowick has been. You can watch the tape and stuff, but the reality of the situation is something needs to change on this offensive line. We don't need to just focus on the positives. The coaches need to open their damn eyes because the fans right now seem to have a better grasp of things. And then we hear Tytus Howard say what he said. Like, it's kind of like the players don't seem to really have much of an idea either. So that's one. A change needs to be made on the offensive line. Some sort of adjustments need to be made by Bobby Slowick. And DeMeco Ryans, your defense is pretty solid. Maybe, just maybe, let's let the offense catch up. Let's get some attention to the offense. Pay as much attention to that as we are the defense. Let's go to the super chats.
What look was going to make that play work? The one where they didn't defend CJ Stroud? The one where he was open? Like what look were they looking for? The one where the Jets had 10 players on the field instead of 11? Like, what look? What look is successful? Everybody in the damn stadium knew exactly what Joe Mixon was about to do. And then Joe,
I thought he was wildcatting, which would have been weird too.
Joe, after the game, I thought CJ got held. Dude, come on.
It was close.
Come on.
It was close.
And like, I don't know. There's no look that thing was successful. It's crappy. Why are you running a trick play on a week where you can't even practice?
You ain't never hate.
Like,
swarm.
That disgusted me. I hated the way DeMeco Ryans handled it.
The way he said, if it works, everyone likes it. You can say that about everything. Mushroom 713. What hurts the most is the investment in the line. Yeah, and I mean the investment in the line. There's no return on investment, and it's unfortunate because the ROI on the D line is just insane. Like, the D line, you're getting your return on investment, but yeah, the offensive line it's not good. It's a very overpaid group, and it's not good.
I owe you an apology.
For what?
I mean, you were. I will never question the Landry locker. This O lineman is shot theory ever again. Shaq Mason's he's as bad as Kenyon Green.
Yeah, and I mean,
as bad as Kenyon Green. I've never seen an offensive lineman with the resume that Shaq Mason has totally regress and fall off. He's slow. He's weak. He's out of position. He doesn't block guys. I've never seen anything like this. Yeah. This guy was a trusted confidant of Tom freaking Brady, and now I wouldn't trust him to watch my dog if I had to go into the store for a second.
Did you get a dog?
It's an idiom.
Oh, okay. But yeah, you can kind of tell in training camp with the way some of these guys move. I think I developed this skill. Matt Khalil helped me. And it's 3 for 3. You can just see the way that these offensive linemen move in camp. It's very easy to see. You see some guys who are old and you're like, damn, this guy's moving pretty well. But they get it done.
Yeah.
D'Amico said we weren't waiting, so why start Green from Avenue Central? What does he mean by that?
I'm not sure. Avenue, can you clarify that?
Yeah, we appreciate you though, my friend. Jesse F, time for Nico to prove he isn't the next Wade Phillips. Come on, man. Well, a really good DC and players coach, but absolutely clueless on how to be a head coach. Be the CEO, not the buddy. See, I think that's unfair. I think D'Amico's still a really, really good head coach. I do think that he needs to figure out the offense, because I think the offense has enough talent. That's the other thing, is I think the offense has enough talent to function with a good play caller. Right now, it's the offensive line, it's Bobby Slowick, and it's not dealing with the cards that you're dealt. Like, I'm going to Las Vegas today. God, I can't wait. I'm so excited. So if I go into Las Vegas and my bankroll is a little bit lower, like let's pretend usually you take a GER. Let's pretend you go to the casino, usually willing to take a G. And let's say that you decide, well, you know what? I'm just gonna lower the bankroll to 500 or 200 or 300, whatever, like a little bit lower. I'm not going to go all in on black, like as soon as I get there and just cross my fingers. Like if my bankroll's lower, the Texans at this point, they know that their offensive line, that they're limited, yet they're having CJ Stroud go back and just kind of sit there and try to make him do things. And we can get to CJ in a second. I actually thought CJ Stroud did a really good job with his legs yesterday. I thought without CJ Stroud running yesterday and using his legs, I don't know that they have a chance. And I wonder how hurt CJ Stroud is. Like I think CJ Stroud got a little bit more banged up than he's willing to admit yesterday. And I also think it's in his head. And I don't know what's expected, because I had some people yesterday in the postgame show saying, you know, CJ Stroud played bad and CJ Stroud wasn't accurate and CJ Stroud missed Mechie. And you're correct. But damn, I mean, he's sacked 8 times and you have, what would they end up with, 19 pressures? Is that correct?
I think it was 21.
Oh, my bad.
Something close like that.
Yeah, 21 pressures. Like, it's just not it's not easy to function there. So I don't know what they are supposed to do. Shane O'Mac, he says, genuine question. All questions are genuine. Well, maybe not. Why don't they utilize a lot more play action, especially when Mixon is rushing 100 yards a game and averaging almost 5 yards per carry? Also, can I get a damn it, Bobby, for one time? Love you, fellas.
Damn it, Bobby.
Shane, appreciate you, man. Landry, you know, I was talking about this with somebody the other day. Why does Slowick's Shanahan tree offense look so different than all the other guys? Like Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur, LaFleur's dummy brother when he was coaching the Jets, Mike McDaniel, like these guys use so many similar elements, and then Bobby's out here with halfback passes. Like I don't understand why his stuff looks so different.
49ers will run some stuff like that every once.
And he gets really prickly when people are like, "Oh, you know, Shanahan trees." Like, well, we're different. Yeah,
I can.
You damn sure are.
Yeah,
yeah. Well, you're real different because they work, yours doesn't.
There's a couple of things that I just don't see existing on the Bobby Slowick offense early on. Like, play action seems kind of non-existent. I saw them run like a RPO yesterday. It looked like a true RPO. But play action seems not to be frequent, and screens. Like, seriously, when's the last time they ran a screen to Mixon? I'm serious.
Well, when they do, they're so predictable. They're so predictable that teams sniff it out. Like they ran one a couple weeks ago, and Mixon got tackled for like a 2-yard loss.
Big Steve says, I'm more upset all week that we have to hear about the Jets being back. We should start Kendrick and trade to replace Mason. Are the Jets back? Are people saying that?
one of the frustrating elements of this game is like this is a fan base in the Jets that starting in the second quarter were chanting "Sell the team, sell the team," and then the Texans went out there in the second half and played so bad. They played so bad that Jets fans left with an unbelievable level of hope that only Jets fans could leave that game with. But they left with hope. And it's like they went from sell the team to like, well, we kind of got a shot. That's how bad you played in the second half.
DeRhino says, you're right, Landry. Screw Tytus's feelings. Put him at guard and Blake at right tackle. Even in games we've won, I haven't felt good about the offense. Yeah, I would move Tytus Howard to guard at this point. I really would. And I would just start Fisher at right tackle. I just want to maybe just like a little bit of a give a damn mindset might be nice. You know, I feel like I feel like a give a damn mindset might be nice. And I feel like Blake Fisher, like every time we look at Blake Fisher, he's like studying his playbook. He's trying to figure out, you know, what he's got to do next. He's a kid, man. Like Blake Fisher, I have no doubt that Blake Fisher is going to come into camp next year. We're going to look at Blake Fisher and say, Jesus Christ, how much weight did you gain, brother? Like, what have you been doing? And Blake Fisher, I think there's a give a damn mindset factor that I just want to see with Blake Fisher. You know,
he looked like the offensive lineman that was taking it the hardest in the locker room outside of Kendrick Green.
Yeah,
Fisher was sitting over there like he just worked a retail shift at a Black Friday.
Hey, and I'm not doing this just to get positive, but I will say this. I felt like, and I'm not sitting here saying he was good. I felt like Kendrick Green was willing to fight to the death yesterday. I felt like Kendrick Green was willing to fight for the death yesterday. Here, this is the best way I can summarize this, because I'm not going to sit here and question Hart, but there is like a give a damn factor. Like Tytus Howard with what he just said, we were the better team. I don't know how you can with a straight face say that. Like maybe he's watched like some press conferences or watched some videos or movies or something, and he's just trying to emulate when teams and players say that. It almost feels like like my daughter yesterday, she was a princess for Halloween and she's going out trying to act like a princess at 1. That's what I feel like Tytus Howard is like when I felt like he put on a Halloween costume and was trying to act like a football player who had a clue about anything when he sits there and says, you know, we were the better team and we could have won this game. That's how I felt when Tytus Howard did that. But you know what? You know what's crazy about this? And I think we'll put this is how I'm going to put this in perspective when it comes to Kendrick Green. With all the crap that we've seen with this offensive line, with the pressure rate, which I think is below 30 now. I think the Texans are below 30th in the league now in pressure rate. CJ Stroud's getting roughed up. The offensive line has been the topic in wins, in losses, etc. It's not even close. The most pissed off that I've seen any offensive lineman, and I know athletes function different ways, but the most pissed off that I've seen any offensive lineman all year long with being one of the highest paid offensive lines in the NFL, with putting CJ Stroud in harm's way, with being the clear problem and not performing to the level they should perform. The most pissed off I've seen an offensive lineman this year was Kendrick Green last week when he didn't play. That tells you everything you need to know. That right there tells you everything you need to know. One of the highest paid tackles in the league, Laramie Tunsil, we don't even hear from him. He's getting water carried for him. Fist bumps and nothing. That's what Laramie Tunsil's getting. He's getting water carried for him. Tytus Howard is saying we were the better team when they go out there and get their butt kicked. Shaq Mason's a nice guy. Juice Scruggs is a little bit accountable. But as far as just pure anger, like what you see from fans, Kendrick Green has shown the most anger, and it was because he did not get to play. Let's hear from that man. Because yesterday he might not have been awesome, but he was willing to fight to the death. And Kendrick Green, he was obviously an upgrade from Kenyon Green. Let's hear from Kendrick Green post-game yesterday in New York.
You almost played this week to start the game, then you wound up going in. How did you feel like it went? How do you kind of handle all that when you're thrown into the game, kind of in the middle of it?
Didn't play well enough. clearly. You know, the score shows that too. Definitely some players I left out there. Just felt like I needed to kind of get the rust off, you know. But, you know, you got to be ready when your number's called, and I tried to do the best I could, but shit wasn't good enough. So.
What do you think they did tonight to make things
same things we've been struggling with all year so far, you know, and it's fixable, but nobody gonna fix it for us. So we gotta get back in the lab and fix it.
Thanks, offensive line. You guys are proud of the growth. How tough is it when your quarterback's that's a record for sacks for him in his career, 8 and a lot of hits?
I mean, you know, you don't want to see that. You know, he's getting off the ground way too many times, so we're gonna fix that. And we back to the drawing board this week. We got a big opponent next week.
Okay. I mean, that guy sounds more like a guy who's a high-paid veteran that has a grasp of what's going on with the team than the actual guys. And the line of questioning is a little bit different too. I will say that it's a little bit different, a little more bass in the voice when Kendrick Green's getting asked questions as opposed to Tytus or Landry, who they don't even go up to and ask questions to, which is insane to me. I'm sorry. But
what embarrasses this offensive line enough to the point where they get better? Like Kendrick Green excluded from this conversation. Like what's going to get them to pay attention to what is going on with how bad it looks? Like, because it's not a situation where it's they call bad plays and the offensive line can't execute them. Like, that's not what it is. Like, it's not a situation where they where CJ Stroud just runs himself into pressure. Like Watson used to do that sometimes. Like, what's going to embarrass this offensive line? Do I need some anonymous writer that I've never seen before rank the offensive line and tweet Laramie Tunsil so that he can pin the tweet? Will that get Laramie Tunsil to lock in?
He's been fine. I mean, he's been the least of the problems. I know.
Sure.
Taking penalties. Laramie Tunsil's the least of the problems.
Right, but like he's a captain. He's a captain, and Tytus Howard walks out here and says, "Yeah, we're not doing what we practice." Like who's holding him responsible? Like who's holding Shaq Mason responsible? Who's holding Juice Scruggs responsible? Like partly that's Laramie Tunsil. Like, it's obviously Bobby Slowick and then ultimately D'Amico Ryans. Like, how do you snap these guys into it to the point where they're going to do what they practice? How do you snap Bobby Slowick into it that you can't coach like you've got a good offensive line? You've got to coach like you've got the worst offensive line in football. Like, how do you get them to realize that this is a potential issue? This is an issue that could potentially ruin a promising season. Like, they are teetering on disaster weekly because the quarterback is getting smushed almost every time he drops back to pass. Like, that is not a acceptable way to play football in 2024. It's never been an acceptable way to play football, but certainly not when it's easier to play offense than it's ever been in the NFL.
We need to put this fatso on the offensive line.
Look, Landry, I'm not fire the hitting coach when the team can't hit guys.
Oh God, are you going to fire the O-line coach?
You got to fire him. You got to fire him, and then you walk in and you show the offensive line.
Think it's his fault.
Well, I agree, because the 5 guys that block aren't good. So I agree that it's his fault. But maybe you can walk in there and appeal to their humanity and say, look, a guy lost his job because you didn't do yours. I can't fire you, so I fired him.
Bench some guys, man. Bench Tytus Howard for a game. Bench him against Detroit. Like, bench Tytus Howard against Detroit. Start Blake Fisher against Detroit with Tytus Howard healthy.
Well,
Sunday night football, you don't get to go out there and do your thing.
Well, we saw what it took to get Kenyon Green benched. I mean,
I just think it's insane that Kendrick Green sounds more like the leader, like a leader and accountable than anyone. He said we got our ass kicked. We didn't play good enough. Obviously, that showed on the field. Tytus Howard says, I feel like we were the better team. Again, I think Tytus Howard just watched a movie or watched a press conference and was trying to emulate. I honestly think that was Tytus Howard's Halloween costume. An accountable like football player. That's what I think. I think for like 15 seconds he put on a Halloween costume and like a confident, capable football player costume. is what he got at Target.
You know what? I disagree with you on bench Tytus Howard because I don't know that he.
I'm just saying.
Hold on. I don't know that he
trying to
learns
be
his
extreme.
lesson. I don't know that he learns his lesson if you bench him. I think you make him play left guard because I know he hates that. So make him play left guard.
But I want Kendrick Green to stay out there.
Well, good. I do too. Make him the right guard. Bench Shaq Mason. He's the worst offensive lineman that's playing right now. So bench him.
Okay, well then bench 3 out of 5. Yeah, figure it out. And then people will say, well, what? I mean, what are you going to do? Allow 8 sacks and 20 plus pressures?
And if you thought, oh my God, if you thought the Jets made this team look bad in the second half, the Lions are going to make that look like child's play. And I don't care they don't have Aiden Hutchinson. They will eat you alive on Sunday Night Football. You want to be embarrassed on Thursday night, on Halloween, where you didn't have all the eyeballs? Wait till it's Sunday Night Football and the Lions are in town. The embarrassment will be spelled in all caps that time.
You know what the Lions point? We've talked about. We've talked about point differential for a little bit. You know what the Lions' point differential is right now? The Texans is +1 through 9 games. Do you want to know?
I have to imagine it is either the second best or the best in football because they know how to dominate somebody.
Oh, it's the best. It's the best. You want to know?
They know how to dominate.
They played 7 games. The Texans have played 9 games. The Texans' point differential in 9 games +1. The Lions' point differential in 7 games +1. 100.
Must be nice. And you know what? Landry? The point differential is +100. And you know what I hear when I check in on Detroit and I listen, and I got a buddy who does morning radio up there. They're not happy with the offense. Like they think it should be better. They think it can be better. They were highly critical of their offensive line in the midst of a Titans rout last week. Like,
yeah, they were talking about yardage,
and they have the best offensive line in football according to most people. And they were like, yeah, offensive line didn't really play well enough against the Titans. Like, I know they've got some good stats here or there, but the offensive line really didn't play that well. And I'm like, I will sign up for that performance right now. Like, and man, just the ruining the offensive line has ruined. The offensive line has ruined the season. It just remains to be seen how much they're going to ruin the season.
They're delusional. Kendrick played a hell of a lot better than Kenyon. It took Kenyon That's the other question that I have. I want to get right to this question here, and I think this is fair to ask. And this is actually kind of sad, to be honest with you. I'm sure it might have been considered, but does Kenyon Green get benched if he doesn't get hurt?
That's a very valid and worthwhile question to ask, because he played a horrible football game last week. They put him on the bench. His replacement was really good for 10 snaps. That guy got hurt, and then they put him back in the game, and he was still bad. Then they didn't make a change after considering making a change, but they didn't. He goes out there against the Jets and is bad again. And the only reason the backup got in is because his shoulder got hurt. So, yeah, it's a worthwhile question. And that's why like when we think about, like, okay, well, what do you do with Tytus? What do you do with Shaq Mason? Could they do something with Juice Scruggs? It's just like, it's laughable to think, because Kenyon Green was allowed to go out there for 8.5 football games and be terrible, and he kept his job. So it's like, why would they go after Tytus? Why would they go after Shaq? Kenyon Green was worse than those guys and kept his job for 8.5 games.
Back to the super chats here on SNL. Appreciate you, Zeros. CJ is the second most sacked QB in the league with 30 sacks, but he's the problem. SMH. I don't know who has said that CJ Stroud is the problem. Maybe there's like someone on your timeline. I don't think that's the case. Quite frankly, I'm actually impressed that it's second most. I actually think it should be on the MVP ballot, given the fact that it's second. Because
I think Deshaun is first.
Well, Yeah. PD says our O is run. CJ save us on 3rd and long. SMH. I don't know what it is. Omar V.
Well, another thing too, like one more thing about the offensive line, because the run save us on 3rd down is Joe Mixon had 91 yards in the first half, and he had 14 yards in the second half. Like they started getting physically manhandled by a Jets defense that, by the way, ended up shorthanded by the end of the night. They lost a bunch of guys throughout the course of the night, and they got manhandled rushing the ball too. And it's not helped by the fact that everybody in the stadium can tell when Bobby Sloak's about to run the football. Like there's no chance, like when they line up in certain situations, or like 1st and 10 right when they get into the red zone, or just outside the red zone, that's a run, and defenses are ready for it. I mean, just an incredible adjustment. I'd say incredible adjustment, but they just started playing basic football and tackling better in the second half, and they shut down the rushing attack for the Texans.
Do you guys think a trade will come in and win? Well, it's got to come before November 5th, so it's got to come before next Tuesday. Do I think a trade happens? Probably. And that's the other thing, that you're back to a point where your wide receiver core is not really good, are not great, are not good enough to where you think it needs to be. And props to Tank Dell. Tank Dell actually played a pretty good game yesterday, and I thought it was a nice response the Texans had on the 50-yard pass to Tank after the score. But you had this same receiving core with Noah Brown last year, and you felt the need to trade for Stefon Diggs and try to trade for Keenan Allen. So now your wide receiver core is kind of back to where it was last year, where you didn't think it was good enough. So you got problems there. Look, Mechie was open on the touchdown. Hutchinson. These guys, they didn't have a single catch yesterday.
They had 3 receivers yesterday.
Yeah.
Robert Woods caught a pass. Tank Dell caught a pass. Dalton Schultz caught a pass. Nobody else caught passes.
Yeah.
That is pathetic.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's actually really crazy. And
Like,
like,
3 guys get a reception. When does that happen? That happens when Army and Navy play football.
I don't think Xavier Hutchinson's Nico Collins. I know that's like a big hot take here on Reaction Friday.
I'm tired of this Xavier Hutchinson stuff. He stinks. He can't get open. Mechie can't get open. And then Mechie's open once. CJ Stroud misses him, and everyone's like, "Boss, CJ, what are you doing?" It's like, yeah, well, he's trying to survive because the defense lives in his lap.
But
He's had more guys on his lap than Santa at the mall.
these are guys like Mechie and Hutchinson are guys that for the rest of their career, they'll be fighting to make the team in camp. They're not guys that whenever you need to call upon them to be second or third options are going to get that job done. I think that's the best way I can look at them. Like, that's the best way I can realistically evaluate them is, will they make the team or not? That's what they're, but I would like to see like maybe a sideways pass to Hutchinson or something like that. Like, let's see what's going on there. Maybe not rely on the offensive line every play.
Yeah, maybe not take a 7-step drop and try to get CJ to hit him on a pass 25 yards down the field, and the 5 guys can't block.
The part
Everything about the offense just folds into suck. Like, the offensive coordinator calls bad plays, the offensive line can't block, the wide receivers can't get open. Like, it just all builds on itself into like this nuclear reaction of just suck.
Street Runners Society says the part that's so frustrating is when you watch them get beat and they just stand there with that dumb look on their face. It's like, what the bleep? Yeah, it's not fun. Steve.
When they ran a bootleg into pressure because Tytus Howard didn't block his guy, and he was like, "What happened?" I think I know what happened.
Tytus getting paid made him think he's an all-pro like Tunsil. Here's my thing with Tytus.
He's not good. He was, even when he played right. He had one good game against T.J. Watt and
Chris Jones at guard
and a switch flipped, and he thought he's awesome. He's not.
Yeah, I think there is an element to where Laramie Tunsil is really, really good, but not everyone is good enough to move like Laramie Tunsil. Like just have the the mannerisms and the mindset of a Laramie Tunsil. And I've talked about this with Laramie Tunsil when we've had him on the air in the past. Like he moves at a different pace. He moves at a different speed. He's a real smart dude, business savvy, all that. Not everyone, specifically on the offensive line, not everyone on the offensive line can move like that and succeed. GL, we need to readjust our big O-line contracts. Can't readjust them. That seems like the only thing that will whip these a-holes into shape to get this point. I don't know if they're a-holes. The Tytus thing is interesting because I think that he buddies up to a lot of people and they don't really want to state the obvious. You know, it always goes to like Kendrick Green and all that. Like it's interesting. Like someone who's performed like that, you think would get like a little bit more criticism, but it seems like there's like a buddy factor there. And y'all can take that however you want to take it. RO line worry more about fashion than the game. I don't know. The guy who worries about fashion is good, despite the penalty. But even he leads the league in penalties. But the guy that worries about fashion is good. Although does Tytus worry about fashion? Not sure. Almost makes you feel like this O-line has some Diddy tapes of the higher ups with the lack of accountability and changes being made. Now that's something nobody's talking about. Does the offensive line have Diddy tapes on Nick Caserio?
One of the questions, like, and I don't know that it's not necessarily going to be met with an answer when you ask it, but like how it's responded to is maybe an indictment on their thought process. What haven't you tried yet to fix the offensive line? What have you not tried as an offense to fix the offensive line?
They haven't tried anything, Cody. What do you mean? Like they've literally not tried anything. Like they've allowed 3 weeks to go, like really the whole season, but they've allowed this to go on all season and they haven't changed anything. Like there's literally been no change. They put Green for a series and then they put him right back in and then he ended up getting hurt. There's been no change.
Right.
They haven't changed the way they call stuff. They haven't changed the guys that they actually play. They've done nothing. They haven't changed it. And the craziest thing about it is you have a body of work of a better performance. Like you have this offensive line, this healthy offensive line, which I never trusted. Honestly, I never said this was going to be a good offensive line. They're going to get healthy and cohesive. I never bought into that crap. I bought into a lot of crap. I never bought into that crap. But you have an example of it. Like they're functioning like right now. What they're doing through D'Amico's gaslighting and through the actual actions of the coaching staff is they're acting as if this offensive line never accomplished anything. They didn't accomplish anything except get paid by y'all's asses. Like y'all brought in Shaq Mason. Y'all gave him an extension. Y'all gave Tytus Howard an extension for whatever effing reason. You gave Laramie Tunsil his bread. He deserves it. He's paying. I'm leaving Laramie Tunsil aside despite the penalties. Y'all drafted Juice Scruggs in the second round. You drafted Kendrick Green in the first round. And these guys got hurt. And last year you had a better offensive line and it was kind of a problem. Like they're treating these guys like this is an established offensive line with some sort of pedigree. And eventually they're going to figure it out. You have zero evidence of this offensive line over performing at a really, really good level. The run blocking, I don't even know. Like the run blocking is better. I think that's a Joe Mixon thing as much as anything. I do think the run blocking is better, but I think that has as much to do with Joe Mixon as it does.
Yeah, it's not good enough because they can't actually impose their will on anybody. That's all Joe Mixon taking care of business because you can't run for 91 yards in the first half, run for 14 in a mostly a one-score game in the second half, and act like you have a good run blocking situation. Rick, I saw the super chat. Good job. You were the best house on the block hitting 100 grand bars last night.
Yes, you did. I don't know much about 100 grand. Zach Rose candy bar. Zach Rose says, what would Andy Reid do? I mean, he would do something to help this offensive line.
I don't know because Andy Reid has never found himself in this situation because he doesn't let it get to this point.
Yeah, and he's a goat. CJ Stroud is going to end up like Tom Savage, horrible concussion on live TV. Well, he already did, but that was on a QB sneak, and that was in New York. But yeah, Tom Savage, huh? Didn't think his name would come up today. Never know what's going to happen on SNL Reaction Monday. Cody, that's a great analogy. In the press conference, when you speak to Bobby, ask him, why are they still doing the 7-step drop pass plays with the offensive line being as horrible as it if you can. I mean, there's been ways of asking that, like the adjustments and stuff like that. So, yeah.
They don't believe in adjustments.
How about
Because if they did, they make some. Like no touchdowns in 3 games in the second half. And it's not like these are great defenses. Like the Colts is not a good defense.
Yeah,
they're okay. Like the Jets were missing 2 of their top 3 cornerbacks in the second half, and the Texans couldn't put a touchdown on the board. And then the Packers are fine, but you can't put a touchdown on the board.
Yeah, I don't know.
When did a touchdown become so difficult?
No idea. 392-007 Thailand. Landry, why don't you ask him if he is worth his extension? Ask Tytus Howard if he's worth his extension in season. I think he kind of knows the answer to that one. Just like when you ask a chick out and she says no, she knows the answer to that too. Gavin, why do people always do cool bleep on us? What is he talking about there?
He's talking about Garrett Wilson.
Oh, when's the last time someone had two one-handed touchdown catches?
It's probably pretty rare.
Like that, Garrett Wilson was absolutely doing his thing. Were you one of those guys that was really pissed off that
there was ruled a touchdown?
Yeah, was there? No. That Jalen Petrie ended up on the ghost of Devontae Adams.
Well, Petrie explained it. He ran by me. Oh, that's what happened. Yeah, he ran by me. Here, I'll play it for you. For you. What happened?
Devontae, you guys are basically in man coverage, is that right?
Yeah, we were.
Just take us through the play, kind of what happened there.
Yeah, he just outside release, speed release, and he just ran away from me. It's that simple. I just got to execute better in that moment. And, yeah, that wasn't my best rep for sure.
What do you think the difference?
That's it. That's all I needed to hear. He ran by me.
Well,
but here's the thing. Here's the thing about the defense, though, Landry. The offense is supposed to be good enough that the defense can make a mistake. Like they shouldn't have to play perfect football.
Yeah.
On defense, they should be able to make a mistake and not have it ruin the chances of them winning the football game. But the defense has to be perfect. Special teams has to be perfect. It's not. Kaimi's back on officially. We're done with this. Kaimi's the best kicker crap. Done with that. And then CJ Stroud's got to be perfect. And if those things don't happen, they can't win the football game.
Yeah, I think the defense was fine. And I mean, Fairbairn's missing chip shot field goals, and you're unable. Well, I mean, for me, like a lot of people were upset with Fairbairn for missing the field goal. I'm more upset that when you get a 15-yard penalty on a fluke ass play, and you have a chance to take the lead, you're unable to take advantage of it. That for me is more frustrating than Fairbairn missing the field goal, just based on what he's done. But if he makes the field goal, then you still have an opportunity. But I thought the defense was fine given the situation. Tytus saying we were better team seems less crazy than someone comparing Tom Savage and CJ Stroud. I think he's just talking about the injury.
Jesse,
I don't.
I was doing. Come on, Jesse.
Yeah, I don't think that's.
Hey, you want to know where I got this water?
Did you get the expensive hotel thing?
I have a really nice hotel because I use points. It's right next to MetLife.
392 still on it. Y'all got to stop the cap with my bro. He had a good game last night. It's very crazy. Some of y'all never even played a sport. Who's he talking about? I don't know.
My God, I hope he's not talking about an offensive lineman.
I don't know. What? Oh, today's the first. Okay. Y'all never played a sport. I don't know. I would love. Maybe he's talking about Petrie. I actually thought Petrie was fine. There's going to be times where you find Petrie in coverage. You just can't hide him the whole time. He's just got to hold his own. But if he's talking about Petrie, I think he was fine. But hey, Ty, it's the first of the month. Make sure you get that payment in for the semi-pro league and the flag football league that probably could touchdown Bundy at.
I mean, Petrie had a couple of nice plays where he was one of the only guys.
He's saying Tytus played a good game. All right, that's got to be a 5-minute timeout there. Yeah, we got to get 392's got. He's on your channel. We got to put that guy in timeout. That guy, that he is dummying things up right now.
Tytus played a good game.
He thought Tytus.
He ain't caused dude. Get
put him in timeout. Yeah, get 392. He's spamming.
Dude, what is going on there?
He is spamming. That dude is eating a spam omelet today in the chat. That is his go-to, spam omelet. Jake Johnson on the super. On a serious note, are we ever going to get D'Amico to acknowledge that the line is a big problem and stop gaslighting everyone? I don't have a problem with the gaslighting if the actions show different. Like if you say, hey, quit talking about the offensive line, and then there's like some sort of change, I don't have a problem with the gaslighting. The problem I have is when the gaslighting turns into like bad decisions and it puts the quarterback in harm's way. I don't expect coaches to be honest with us. I expect athletes. I don't expect them to be honest. I would just rather lie with a purpose. That had to be Tytus's burn account, by the way.
That's not. I mean, it's just not the truth.
Oh my goodness! It is Reaction Friday here. Landry Locker. Cody,
I'm trying to look up something on the fly here, so I apologize. But okay, David Culley's team in 2021, they were the worst third quarter team in football. They averaged 2 points per third quarter. This team is averaging 3.6 points per third quarter. So the second half stuff just disgusts me.
Yeah, three touchdowns. We'll do that to you. Now we're getting Tytus burner account stuff right there. Someone says Tytus couldn't block spam. Goodness gracious.
Ooh,
goodness gracious. Let's go through the game and let's just go through the big plays and stuff so we can kind of. And I think we always do this exercise. I think it kind of just gives you a little bit of a grasp of what actually happened the night after the actual game. I thought it was interesting that the Boo Birds were immediately out for the Jets. The Texans, their first drive, 3rd and 5, you had CJ find Tank Dell, which was pretty exciting. But then on 3rd and 4, it was incomplete to Schultz, and the Texans ended up punting. It was very apparent early on that the Jets fans just hated this team. And you started to wonder, okay, is this just going to be one of the one of the Texans' days? You had Aaron Rodgers sail one over the head of the receiver. Then you had a run for nothing, and then you had a Nico Autry sack. By the way, Nico Autry did play good yesterday. He had 2 sacks. He had a good game.
Played awesome in the first half.
But then you had the Jets punt. Then the Texans get something going on offense, and immediately you're about to punt, but there's a roughing the punter, so the Texans get a break from the Jets. I think that's kind of a theme throughout. Joe Mixon moves the chains. He has 37 yards on 3 carries, and then Kenyon Green gets beat.
One more time. Hold on. One more time about this drive, because they get a roughing the punter on 4th and 21 because on 2nd down, after Tunsil had already false started on 1st down, they had an 8-yard sack because they just didn't pick up the DB on a blitz. So
yeah, he was okay. We've seen that's kind of been a thing too.
Like you had a situation where, man, all the mistakes you've been making, you made those mistakes on this drive, and the Jets are like, no, hold on, we'll clean that up for you, and then to where you are in the drive, Landry.
So then the Texans, it looks like they're going to, at the very least, get some points, but Kenyon Green gets beat. CJ Stroud fumbles. Then a scary moment. Will Anderson, he goes down, which was scary. He was in and out. He definitely needs the extra rest.
And that was a freak thing where Neville Hewitt was going for the play, Anderson was going for the play, and then Hewitt just rolled onto his left ankle. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but it looked like a high ankle sprain to me.
Then Kenyon Green gets beat again. The Jets get the ball.
I think you said that already.
No, that happened. Yeah, it happened.
Did you move to the next drive, or is that the same one?
I moved to the next drive. He gets beat again, and the Jets get the ball. And then it just kind of seems like, okay, is this Jets team just destined for stupidity? Because you have the you have the roughing the punter on 4th and 21. Then the young man's supposed to have his first touchdown ever. He drops the ball out of the back of the end zone. He goes to Deshaun Jackson. Texans get the ball. Malachi Coy drops the ball at the 1. He eliminates the touchdown. And then on the very next series, Kenyon Green gets completely bullied. He gets injured. And now you're finally going to see what Kendrick Green looks like. And I'll be damned. The Texans 2 for 2 in drives where Kenyon Green is on the sidelines. Does that mean that Kenyon Green is the solution? The answer to that is no. It doesn't mean. There's probably other problems on the offensive line, but at that point, you had 2 offensive series with Kenyon Green on the sidelines, and in both of those series, you had scored 2 touchdowns. And here we are right now. Those are the only 2 touchdowns you've scored on legit drives. You've scored 3 touchdowns the last 2 weeks. One of them came on the 7-yard drive after Anthony Richardson at the end of the second half, his interception, and you take the lead. So Kendrick Green Texans take a 7-0 lead.
And this was a 98-yard drive. That's how much they moved on the field. They actually gained more yards on that drive because they had to overcome a couple of negative plays on that drive. It's like they went 98 yards and then some because they had to make up for their own mistakes. And it's not like this drive. Yeah, Sauce Gardner had a penalty on this drive. It was a second down penalty. It's not like they kept the drive alive, like it was one of those, like it was the rough in the kicker. Like this was an impressive drive, and my dumb ass thought, okay, here we go. Christmas light theory. They've got this thing squared away. Hold on, I got to tell the people I get the late checkout. I'll be right back.
All right, there you go. Cody Stoots, live from New York. Look at that right there. He's got to get the late checkout. Let him know. Back to the super chat. Street Runners. Landry stated best, if this problem was happening on the defensive side of the ball, changes would have been made immediately. D'Amico would not let this lingering problem with the offensive line happen on his defense. And I think D'Amico deserves a lot of credit for what he's done. I think this team has done an excellent job. But D'Amico Ryans does not let this happen on the defense. The equivalent of this does not happen. I'm sorry, it doesn't.
That's your best take of the day.
Doesn't happen. There's a 0% chance that on his defense this happens. H-Town TD 2000 says, damn it, Bobby. That's all you want? You just want a little damn it, Bobby?
Damn it, Bobby.
Oh, that's the noise CJ Stroud makes when those guys have to pass block for him.
Shout out to Mo Heavy. We haven't scored a second half touchdown in 3 games. We've scored 3 all year. 3 all year. That's what the Texans have done. 3 all year.
That's going to be a Houston football project in the next couple of days, is digging into the second half.
Come on, L.
Crappiness.
Shout out to L. We love L. But he says, I hate asking this, but does BetUS have odds on CJ making it through the season without being on IR?
Don't do that.
If you want to try to check, though, you can use promo code YouTube150. Let me send you YouTube150, 150% bonus back on your first deposit up to $2,000.
Even the dog's like, don't do that.
Yeah. Casey was pissed yesterday. She wasn't too happy. She felt kind of left out. So on the 2 drives, minus Kenyon Green up to that point, you had scored 14 of your 30 points, 2 of your 3 touchdowns, and your only 2 legit touchdowns. Then you have a situation where it would be a 52-yard field goal. You get sacked for -4, and Kaimi Fairbairn shanks a 56-yarder. Don't really.
It's tough to be super critical of a 56-yarder at that crappy stadium.
And I'm fine with the attempt, but we have seen them pass that up in the past. And with the way that things were looking, you give them the short field, and they did not capitalize, but they did right off the top at the start of the second half. Start of the second half, Garrett Wilson TD ties it at 7. This was an elite drive by the Jets. And this is what it looks like when you make second half adjustments. I made fun of the Jets coaching staff. And I said, these guys look silly. These guys look foolish. But, I mean, they scored a touchdown on their opening drive. And actually, they scored 2 touchdowns in the second half, which is 2/3 of what the Texans have scored all season. And they looked like they saw something. You had the ghost of Devontae Adams move the chains. You had Garrett Wilson move the chains. Mike Williams straight off the bench, he moves the chains. And then Garrett straight out of Austin, Texas, with the one-handed grab into the end zone to tie the game at 7. Then Ka'imi Fairbairn makes a 54-yard field goal.
On the Garrett Wilson one. When did referees become anatomy experts? Because my understanding of the way the NFL rules is that you have your foot and then you have your leg.
No, this was the first one, brother.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You're ahead. Yeah, he had 2 one-handed catches. I know we're not used to guys getting multiple one-handed catches. This was the first one just right across the middle.
I apologize.
Yeah. 54-yard field goal by Fairbairn makes it 10-7. Then 4th and 2 from midfield. I thought this was a big play. Devontae Adams kind of jukes Kamari Lassiter, gets the best of him, gives the young man a little bit of a teachable moment, which is fine.
I thought you had to throw, or I thought you had to run on 3rd and 4th and short. So I was shocked by this. I didn't know you could throw the ball on 3rd and 4th and short. And it was one of those things, like, I kind of wonder if they were going to keep doing that on 3rd down and short and 4th down and short. And lo and behold, they certainly did.
They did. Then you had perhaps the worst call of the game. Derek Stingley got an illegal contact on 4th down. I thought that was a chicken shit call, to be honest with you.
Terrible. That was terrible.
I mean, honestly, if I'm a DB coach, if I'm coaching the secondary and we're having a film session, I'm actually singling that out as perfect textbook coverage. I thought that was perfect. He had his hand, he was jamming him inside 5 yards, and then he just had his hand on the hip past that. That's exactly how you're taught as a DB to do it. I mean, honestly, that was perfect by Derek Stingley. Nothing you can do. Yeah, nothing you can do there with Derek Stingley. I thought that was actually I thought the refs were bad. By the way, I got to say this too. I got to get this off my chest, because if the shoe had been in the other foot, I'll be honest, I would have probably been bitching about it a lot. So I got to be completely honest with the people. Shout out to the people. It is SNL. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to both of our channels, and ride along for the best Texans coverage in the game. Al Michaels was good yesterday. What happened? Al Michaels, you didn't even watch the game. You were in the press box. Al Michaels was effing great. He sounded like he was in his prime.
Really?
Maybe it's the New York Lights. I don't know. Al Michaels was good. Do you people agree? He was good. Did that sound like the Al Michaels we've been hearing on Thursday night? Might be those bright lights.
Drop a microphone in the comment section if you thought Al Michaels was good. No, that's not this channel.
Shut up.
That's not this channel.
We've already gotten rid of one spam omelet. I don't want to spam anything else. But yeah, I thought Stingley, the illegal contact was garbage. Then the Jets have the one-handed catch by Garrett Wilson in the back of the end zone, straight out of Austin to Ohio State to the Jets. Garrett Wilson is a very underutilized talent, by the way.
What was Kamari Lassiter doing on that play?
I mean, he was trying to cover him, and I think thought he was going out of bounds or something. I don't know. I don't know what was.
I mean, he literally didn't make contact with him once. If Lassiter touches him at all, he probably goes out of bounds. He probably doesn't catch the football. But Kamari was just he was there, but he wasn't there.
I think he just didn't think he was going to catch it. I don't know.
I also thought it was a little bit of offensive pass interference.
Oh wow, there you go, begging for flags. Okay.
Now after I pulled the Texans offensive line and false started. Now here's my question: when did referees become anatomy experts? Because there's my understanding there was the foot and the leg. But the lower shin touches before the knee out of bounds, and that's the reversal. I didn't know that the referee could make a differentiation between the part of the leg that touched. I thought it was your feet and your legs, and it's yes, we all know that a knee equals 2 feet. That's very clear, but
his knee comes down out of bounds. Like, yes, I'll agree with you that the shin contacts the ground first in bounds. His knee comes down out of bounds. I thought the rule was your feet and your legs. I didn't know that the officials and that New York got to be anatomy experts.
Yeah.
That was a bad overcall. That was a bad overturn. They should have called it a touchdown and then let it stand. That they did not have conclusive evidence that should have been overturned.
Yeah, I didn't think it was like that bad, but yeah, I get what you're saying. Then the Texans, they're down 4, so the Texans are trying to figure something out and figure out what the hell they can do and where the hell they go from there. And they actually get a break from the Jets again because they get a personal foul on a field goal attempt. And the Texans then, seems like a decent play was dialed up, but Stroud misses Mechie, and then Fairbairn misses the chip shot field goal, which means the Jets are a touchdown away from ending this game. This is when you just kind of knew, all right, it ain't happening. It ain't happening. And Devontae Adams puts the Texans out of their misery. He gets Jalen Petrie, and the Jets go up 21-10. Texans driving with a couple of timeouts. I thought D'Amico should have kicked the field goal at a minute 20. I don't care how Fairbairn's kicking. You're going to need 2 scores anyway. And I mean, let's be honest, you still have confidence in Fairbairn. I thought with 120 and 2 timeouts, that's when they should have kicked the field goal. They didn't, probably didn't matter anyways. And bada bing, bada boom. Texans lose 21-13. They lose to the Jets, fall to 6-3.
That's just, there's so much. Like, I feel bad for the defense because they basically, I mean, the Jets went touchdown on them in the second half. And the offense went field goal, missed field goal, field goal.
Mo Heavy says, can we get a shout out to 610? I miss you on there. I mean, shout out to Sean, shout out to Seth, shout out to Ben Gary, shout out to Figgy, shout out to Reggie. Good luck. Clint, Show, Tyler, shout out to y'all. So yeah, there you go. If I left someone out, probably on purpose. Jorge, appreciate you on the super. H-Town TD 2000, 2023, 27 passing TDs, 10 rushing TDs, 2024 so far, 11 passing TDs, 9 rushing, more bounce this year, but passing looks so much less creative, aggressive than last year. Shaking my head. Yeah, I mean, you don't have Nico right now. I'm sure that kind of helps the pass game. Joe Mixon's better than any running back that you've had. He just continues to look incredible. Pro Bowl caliber performance. I don't know if it's balance or not. Like, I don't know that I would call this attack balance though.
Makes me, I mean, balancing on their head to try to figure out how to fix this offensive line, maybe. But
yeah, I feel like the run is really the most effective thing. Caserio said last week that the talk about the O-line is ridiculous. What is that about? Nick Caserio doesn't know a damn thing about O-line. Like, I mean, let's just be serious. I don't take his opinion serious about offensive line. Like, I think Nick Caserio, who has like the best diet in the world, he knows more about junk food than he does the offensive line. I mean, look at what he's done. I mean, he gave Tytus Howard an extension for no reason. Didn't even make him go out there and earn it. He brought in Shaq Mason. Gave him an extension. He drafted Juice Scruggs in the second round. We don't know how Juice is going to be. And he drafted Kendrick Green in the first round. Like Nick and Tom Brady, quite frankly, was the offensive line coach in New England. Like let's just be honest. Like Tom Brady was directing traffic.
Well, they had Dante Scarnecchia for all those years, like a legendary offensive line.
I would rather ask Nick Caserio about pizza or burgers, and he doesn't even eat pizza or burgers. He doesn't even eat like that. All he eats on Thanksgiving is turkey and cranberry sauce. He knows more about junk food than he does offensive line. He's the last person that I trust to talk about the offensive line, quite honestly. Tyler Kent, SNL, best pair duo in Houston sports talk history. That's a little much. And I go way back. Me equals sad. We're going to lose on road in division round with Mills. and QB because CJ got fined. Goodness gracious, man. We're already injuring CJ.
It's a lot to
Shout out
unpack
you,
there.
Tyler, though. We love you, man. Shout out
Tyler,
to the
thank
dog, too. That dog's chilling.
Thank you for the kind words.
You're the man. They call me Mr. Nobody. You're somebody to me, my man. You're somebody to me. Go get Brandon Sheriff from the Jags right now. Okay. I don't know if they'll trade him to you, but yeah, they probably don't have much going on. Zach Rose, Mixon, and Fairbairn are the Texans offense.
Most of the time.
Nico, though, you do get Nico back.
You know, they spent like a week or maybe it was 2 weeks as the top passing offense in football, and that feels like it was a million years ago.
Look before you leap. So he says he's not going to wear his Texans, not going to keep wearing my Texans gear in shame. Sorry, Texans. When y'all get better, I'll start repping the team game. But for me, it's a no. See, my dad always taught me a lesson, and I thought it was a really good lesson. And I actually think it helps build your fanhood character. And I'm not one of these people who says you show up no matter what and you're a diehard, but the best time to wear your fan gear is actually the day after a loss. It's very humbling. And that was always the rule for my dad. Like if he was going to buy me like a shirt or a jersey or something for Christmas, the one rule was you got to wear this the day after the loss. So Texas loses to OU, rocking the Chris Sims jersey. God, that sucked. Rocking the Chris Sims jersey to school on Monday, getting picked on and all that. It happened. But yeah, I think that's the best time to rock the gear, to be honest with you.
I agree with this. And ever since you told me that story, I feel like it's something that more people should adapt.
O-line needs to be better at protecting CJ. He started running out of the pocket more because he knew his O-line would fail. Yeah, and I thought CJ was actually really good with his legs yesterday. I thought he did a really, really good job of extending plays. I thought that that was one of the better things that CJ did. Let's get to a couple of things on the back end here. And I just want to kind of do a side-by-side comparison when it comes to the offensive line. But the simple reality of the situation is that this all goes down to the offensive line. And we're used to offensive line problems when it comes to the Texans. It seems like it's been a thing going back to the start of the franchise, going into the Deshaun era, going into now. Like the offensive line, no matter how much you invest, there's a serious problem. Can the Texans take the next step with this offensive line? I think that's the question. D'Amico Ryans gaslighted us all week. He said he wanted to talk about the positives. They didn't really make any changes until they were forced to with Kendrick Green. They benched him briefly last week and they brought him back. Tytus Howard insists that they were the better team. Like with this offensive line, can the Texans take the next step? And I think it's going to take a couple of things. First of all, something's got to change. Whether it's one guy bench, whether it's two guys bench, whether it's a trade, like something's got to change. You can't just throw the same five guys out there. At this point, that's malpractice. The other thing is you have to know what you're dealing with. Bobby Slowick is not calling offense like he's aware that the offensive line is bad. And it's one thing for the coaches to say something, but when you see them actually do it and you see them actually functioning the way they are and acting like nothing's wrong, that's where it gets discouraging. And that's where you start to get that unfortunate, helpless feeling with the O-line. So it's going to be on Bobby Slowick. It's going to be on the Texans to make a change. Does that guarantee you that the offensive line improves? I don't know, but it's bleeding into CJ Stroud's spirit. Like CJ Stroud, we saw him throw the helmet in Green Bay, and it's just very clear he's not as accurate as he was. He doesn't have the time. Yesterday, they asked him about the wide receivers. CJ Stroud thought it was interesting. He said, you could have anyone out there. We're not going to get the job done. That's basically saying that it's impossible with this offensive line. So I'm asking you the question, do you think the Texans can take the next step with this offensive line?
No. They cannot take the next step with this offensive line. Can they get back to some of those tiny bits of success that they had this past or earlier in the season when there was some positivity to the passing game? Yes, but they cannot take the next step with this offensive line. They cannot push this passing offense into the upper echelon where they thought it was supposed to be or they thought it could go. They cannot do that with this offensive line. They can make a change or some changes and adjustments and improve. But the five guys, the 6 guys with Kendrick Green, 7, 8 guys they're not good. They're not good enough. So they can't go to another level. Can they get back to where they were where it looked okay, but you're still wondering, like, is there a little bit more to this passing offense? Yeah, they can get there. But the next step, no.
And I think the two most important guys who've done a hell of a job, and they've gotten us out of football hell quicker than we could have anticipated. They're kind of showing signs of being a little bit blinded by the offensive line, not just with their words, but with their actions. And I think actions matter as much as anything. You had D'Amico Ryans kind of gaslighting us last week and saying, let's focus on the positives. I can say this with 100% certainty because there's not a coach that I would trade D'Amico Ryans for. On his defense, the equivalent of what's happening with this offensive line, it doesn't happen on his defense. There's some sort of change made. 100%. He is an elite defensive coach. He's an elite football coach in general, and he's still a really young football coach. But I feel very confident that this does not happen on his defense. Then I heard this secondhand. I don't really listen to Nick Caserio's interview, the weekly one. But I guess Nick Caserio is talking about like defending the offensive line. And I said this a minute ago, but I'm just going to make this clear. Nick Caserio is the most healthy routine guy that there is. Like it's Tom Brady, like how healthy Nick Caserio is. I don't think he eats an ounce of junk food over the course of the entire season. I would rather ask Nick Caserio about what kind of Halloween candy I should eat than I would about the offensive line. He's the last person I want to hear talk about the offensive line, because you talk about any way of misevaluating an offensive line. Nick Caserio he has performed that task, from extensions to first round picks to second round picks to bringing guys in and giving them extensions. Like if you have a problem with these 5 offensive linemen, look no further than Nick Caserio. And it's not just one way of evaluating. He's been awful on the offensive line. So Nick Caserio gaslighting about the offensive line, sir, I will ask you where to go get a good slice of pizza in Boston or Houston before I want to hear anything he has to say about the offensive line.
Yeah, he has either kept or acquired all those guys on the offensive line.
And you go back to New England, Tom Brady was basically directing the offensive linemen, and they have one of the best offensive line coaches of all time. So Nick Caserio, I don't need to hear him about the offensive line. I also want to do this, and I find this interesting when it comes to this offensive line. And I think Laramie Tunsil, you put him to the side. Laramie Tunsil gets a lot of bad venom from fans because of the penalties. If 5 guys on the offensive line perform the way Laramie Tunsil did, you would be in pretty good shape. So I'm gonna put Laramie Tunsil to the side. I do think it's kind of interesting though that his mindset is being like kind of passed, it feels like, to Tytus Howard. And I just want to do a side-by-side because I think it's really interesting. It's just an interesting observation. And again, it doesn't matter what players and coaches say, but it's interesting that the most pissed off and accountable that we've seen an offensive lineman this year was Kendrick Green last week when he didn't play. He didn't get to play, and he was pissed. He wasn't on the field during all these struggles. And yesterday after the game, let's just do a little side-by-side. Your high-paid tackle, Tytus Howard, and then let's hear what Kendrick Green, who's played one game, less than one game for the Texans, had to say. Let's start with Tytus Howard. This is Tytus Howard. Try to make sense of the problem that the Texans have on the offensive line based on what Tytus Howard says. I'll let you be the judge of this. Take it away, Tytus.
Came down to it. As a group up front, we just had one-on-ones. Just didn't do good enough.
And they weren't showing anything different. They ran the defense they normally run, all the stuff looks.
They didn't even run that many stunts. Just got one-on-one. That's the biggest thing.
When you have a game like this collectively as a line and everybody that pass protects, what do you guys do to try to prove this and be able to have better performance going forward?
Really just got to take what we get in that practice and apply it to the field. We're really not doing that right now. We started off early in the game. We let the quarterback get hit too much. Trickled down. Maybe a slow start for us. The run game was going, but the pass pro wasn't there. And that's been our problem. So we got to fix that.
Do you feel like it is fixable?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's fixable. It's just like D'Amico said, man, we got to go out there. We knew we was going to get. We got to win the one-on-ones. That's where they had us our group, we knew what we had to do. We knew what we was going to see. We just didn't win the one-on-ones across the board.
It's something that when something starts kind of going bad, everything kind of folds in on itself, and it makes it tougher to kind of set level.
Yeah, man, you just got to move on, man. Like, if something bad happens, you just got to not let that trickle down and keep happening throughout the game. I know my mentality is if something bad happens, I'll try to push it away and don't let that affect the rest of my game. I always went by that. But as a group, we just got to be better, man. We haven't played to the standard that we need to play to in the past game. Of course, we've been running the ball, but, I mean, you got to be able to throw the ball to win. And like I said, quarterback's getting hit too much, so we got to be better.
What's the most frustrating part about it?
The most frustrating part is that, man, we the better team. We let that game get away from us, especially in the second half. We didn't come back out with the same intensity we had like in the second quarter. So we just let a team steal a win from us. Kudos to them. The boys fought hard in the second half, but we just didn't finish the game right.
All right, so you couldn't block them one-on-one, but you were the better team. Like that's kind of an important piece to the thing. But I want to hear what Kendrick Green sounds like, because he's not, Kendrick Green is kind of a guy he was Pittsburgh didn't want him. It seems like he wants to play. Tytus Howard said that we were the better team. Let's hear what Kendrick Green had to say about it.
You almost played this week to start the game, then you wanted going in. How did you feel like it went? How do you kind of handle all that when you're thrown into the game, kind of in the middle of it?
Didn't play well enough. Clearly, the score shows that too. Definitely some players I left out there. Just felt like I needed to kind of get the rust off, But you got to be ready when your number's called, and I tried to do the best I could, but it wasn't good enough. So.
What do you think they did tonight to make things difficult?
Same things we've been struggling with all year so far, and it's fixable, but nobody gonna fix it for us. So we gotta get back in the lab and fix it.
As an offensive line, you guys are prior to the roof. How tough is it when your quarterback's that's a record for sacks for him in his career, 8 and a lot of hits?
I mean, you don't want to see that. He's getting off the ground way too many times. So we're gonna fix that. And we back to the drawing board this week. We got a big opponent next week.
All right. So there you go. So I go back to this, and the question obviously is, can the Texans take the next step with this offensive line? If the answer is no, how do they give themselves the best chance to do it, though? Like there needs to be a change, and Bobby Slowick needs to change the way he calls plays. I think that's the answer. That's what they need to do. But even then, there's no guarantees. But it is crazy to hear the difference between Kendrick Green and Tytus Howard after the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's not surprising. It's not surprising that there's a different mood or mentality. And they were changing offensive lines like weekly last year, and they could figure it out. And they did figure it out. And they had guys in and out of the lineup. They had backups playing. They had guys playing positions that they had, no reason to be playing. Like, I mean, Josh Jones played left guard at one point last year. Michael Dieter was your starting center at one point last year. Like, those things shouldn't work. And like, they found ways to make it work last year. And they have the starting offensive line for most of this, for 8 games now, 9 games, whatever it is, that they've wanted for 18 plus months. And it's worse than that mismatch patchwork offensive line that they had most of last year. And so how do you make it work with this offensive line? Maybe you make it a mismatched patchwork offensive line. You start moving guys in and out. Like they haven't tried everything.
They haven't tried anything. I mean, they benched Kendrick Green briefly, and then they were going to – I mean, I don't even know that he comes out of the game yesterday. Like, I don't even know that he comes out of the game for Kendrick Green if it's not for the injury. So, I guess the good news is they haven't tried really anything. The bad news is, though, that they haven't really tried anything. So we'll see how it goes. But the offensive line, it's more of the same kind of with the offensive line.
Like, I'm not opposed to having a nearly totally different offensive line on the field against the Lions. Like, I'm not opposed to that.
No, I'm not either. I'm not either.
Like
no.
if you want a different center, if you want a different left guard, if you want a different right guard, if you want a different right tackle, like
Not at
obviously they're not benching Laramie Tunsil, but I mean, if you want it to be Green and Scruggs and Patterson and Fisher, I'll listen because it's I don't know how it's 9 weeks into the season and it's let's throw something at the wall and see if it sticks with this offensive line, but here we are.
In the life of Colby, I'm not defending them, but they just got their ass kicked by the Jets, and then you got folks in your face asking what happened. I wouldn't be excited to talk to you. I don't think that notion, though, is like proportional to what we're talking about, because Kendrick Green is saying that we got our ass kicked, we sucked, and it's been a problem all year. And Tytus Howard is saying that we were the better team after saying that we got our ass kicked. I didn't see anyone that was frustrated or upset there. And I don't even expect them to be completely honest. And I don't expect words to be proportional with actions. Like D'Amico Ryans can say whatever he wants, but this is the problem, Colby. It's every single element adding up and showing that this offensive line is just either being neglected or just incompetent. D'Amico Ryans says, let's focus on the positives. Let's figure this out. They put the same guys out there. They're saying that they did a good job when there was a higher pressure rate, and then they're doing the same thing. They're calling the games the exact same way. So I don't even think that there was anything wrong with like the mannerisms there or anything like that. I just don't. I think there's like they seem clueless. Like they seem clueless about the offensive line, and you can seem clueless in public and then go out there and get it done. But from D'Amico to Caserio to Slowick to when you hear Tytus, it just seems like they don't really have a clue what to do, and it's just not it's not good, especially for your most important guy, CJ Stroud.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it last week. It was doesn't it feel like there's confusion heading into this game about like, is the offensive line going to get it squared away? Like the way that they talk about it. And then lo and behold, against the Colts, it looked like there was confusion for this offensive line about how to get it squared away.
Truth with E says, fix the O-line. Nick better be on his phone getting a guard, receiver, and running back. D'Amico needs to call Kubiak for help. Everyone's calling for Kubiak for help.
What's Gary Kubiak going to come do? Play right guard?
I don't know. Probably more than Bobby Slowick, if we're being honest.
I'll tell you what, Gary Kubiak knew how to get a quarterback away from pressure. I mean, how many times was Matt Schaub running free in the open field with options to throw the football? Of course, the right tackle was able to block the guy when they ran the bootleg on that one. Tytus just threw the guy into CJ Stroud last night. So
if Nick doesn't make a trade or do something for the offensive line, CJ will not make it through the season healthy. This is a constant theme, man.
One guy doesn't fix it. I was wrong. The Christmas light theory was wrong. It wasn't one guy in the offensive line is fixed.
It got better though. It got better.
It got better.
Yeah.
But then you realize that string of Christmas lights that a rat had chewed through a piece of the line and that the fuse was busted and that actually that you weren't getting electricity to that outlet and everything's wrong with it. But it's not one guy. You could drop Quentin Nelson onto this team, widely regarded as the best left guard in football. You could drop Quentin Nelson onto this team. They would get better. They would still have issues blocking.
Okay. I think Hannah will pressure Nick to fix the O-line. What? Hannah's gonna be the one to get the job. What are we doing here? H-Town TD 2000. Let's go. Bad middle school O-line. Time to go foot to foot. Close the gaps. LOL. L, do we have any hope against Detroit? In my opinion, hell no. Look, I put this stat out there. The Lions have a plus 100 point differential in 7 games. The Texans have a plus 1 in 9.
Must be nice. Must be nice to have an offensive coordinator that can take a broken, busted, given up on quarterback and turn it into a candidate for the MVP award when the Texans have an offensive coordinator that took the offensive rookie of the year widely regarded by
He had
most people.
something to do with it, though. Like, he helped them.
Well, I know, but has gone in there this year and looked nothing like the guy last year.
You know what's really weird, though? Like, and it's a point you brought up. I think you said something that kind of showing me the light. And we've kind of said it a little bit, but there's something like I might be kind of seeing the light. We'll talk about that in a sec. Let's clear out these supers, though. GC says we need to get some cornbread fed MFs on the line, not these effing divas. Look at the Lions O-line. They're making Goff look like an MVP. Similar to what Stoots said. Jake Johnson says, realistically, is there any good O-line players we can make a trade for? I'm not an expert on that. The problem is I don't think Nick Caserio knows much about offensive linemen either.
Yeah, what are they going to ask? Chris Strausser? Who would you go get, Chris?
Here's my thing that I just thought about when it comes to the Texans, and you brought it up. The offensive line that the Texans have right now, it's obviously the worst, one of the worst offensive lines in the league, but it's been together all season long for the most part. And that over the course of a half a season, it's been together, and we've seen the exact same things for the most part from week 1 to now. There's been stretches where some stretches have been better than others, but for the most part, we've seen the same thing. Last year, you had it felt like a different offensive line every week. And maybe whenever that happens, it shouldn't be the case, but you get more attention from guys, and they take their assignments a little bit more serious because you have a guy who's getting thrown into the mix like Dieter or something like that, and he probably doesn't possess the talent. He doesn't have the contract and the confidence of that a lot of these guys have, but he's all ears and he's ready to go. He's trying to figure out his assignment. Same thing with like a George Fant or something like that. It almost feels like whatever's going on with these guys, whatever's going on with this offensive line, like we can sit here and we can say, well, Bobby Slowick needs to coach better, but you just heard Tytus Howard say we're getting our ass kicked one-on-one. Like that, if you're just going to get your ass kicked one-on-one, like we can say Bobby Slowick needs to call plays this way, and I do agree that the offensive line doesn't resemble that, but how if you're admittedly just getting your asses kicked one-on-one, then there's no hope for this. There's no hope for this offensive line unit. So they gotta do something. And I almost like, is it desire? Is it like, what are we looking at here? I'm really confused about the offensive line, but these guys, I don't think they have the makeup to be a good offensive line. And I don't know if that's a mental thing. I don't know if it's a physical thing. I don't know. It could be both, but they just don't have it. We've seen enough. They do not have it.
You can't embarrass them into improvement, because if you could, they'd have been better after Green Bay and they were worse, and they'd have been better after Indy and they were even worse. So you can't embarrass them into improvement. So how do you improve the offensive line? Because continuity does not equal success. Okay, if continuity doesn't equal success, maybe changes do.
Two good things to take from this game. And I think there were two things that I think could be valuable moving forward.
Are we ending on a positive note?
I'm not ending on a positive note. I'm just saying two things that could be valuable moving forward. First of all, you're getting arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL. Statistically, he was best performing. I'll say, but one of the best performing wide receiver in the NFL. And Nico Collins, you're getting him back next Sunday. You might get
still 9th in receiving yards, by the way.
Still
9th in receiving yards.
You also might be getting the best version of Tank Dell. He might be finding his groove. So that's the good thing. Now you're thin at wide receiver 3 down, but if you can get Tank and Nico going at the same time, depending on how Bobby Slowick handles that, I would say that's a good thing. The other interesting development yesterday that I don't think any one of us kind of like envisioned as a possibility, you might have an RB2. JJ Taylor showed enough to where I think JJ Taylor needs to be the guy that is second in line when it comes to carries, and he kind of strikes me as a guy that you might be able to perhaps use on screens or something like that, and maybe add a new element to the offense, assuming Bobby Slowick can handle that. I think there was kind of the emergence of an RB2 with Dameon Pierce being off the field. So there was a little bit there. Maybe you get a quality RB2 that can kind of be a nice complement to Joe Mixon. Maybe you get the best version of Tank Dell, and you're getting one of the best statistical wide receivers in the NFL back in Nico Collins against Detroit. So that's the good thing, that the weapons on offense seem to be improving a little bit.
I've got some bad news for you. As soon as Dameon Pierce is healthy, J.J. Taylor's running back 4. So
there's no way.
Good bad news for you.
There's no way.
Dameon Pierce will be running back 2 as soon as he's healthy.
There's zero chance that J.J. Taylor did not earn opportunity to be RB2 yesterday. That would be asinine. Now,
Dameon Pierce will be running back 2 as soon as he's healthy.
So you're telling me that the next time that J.J. Taylor and Dameon Pierce are healthy, that Dameon Pierce gets more carries?
Yep.
Okay, we'll see.
I do not agree with it, by the way. I'm just telling you what they're going to do. Kendrick Green nearly got the quarterback killed for 3 games in a row, and he couldn't get benched. They're not taking Dameon Pierce's reps away because he got hurt.
And this just goes back to the D'Amico thing, and I think the defensive-minded head coach is kind of blending if that's the case, because it was clear last year that Dameon Pierce, like RB2, not great. Like that was not good enough, and they just run it back. And they run it back with the offensive line, and they just keep running it back. There is like a little bit of concern. I think J.J. Taylor, maybe I'm giving the offensive staff a little too much credit. I think that J.J. Taylor is your RB2, but we'll see. Back to Mo Heavy. I think Nico is such an important role because he's the guy CJ throws to when he scrambles because the O-line can't block, and Nico can come back to the ball. So can Tank, honestly, when he's at his best. So, yeah, you're getting a little bit of help at wide receiver. You're not going to see Hutchinson and Mechie getting the majority of the snaps. Dog lay 18. What I don't get is when we are 3rd and long and Stroud is holding the ball for more than 2-3 seconds, I can't see the full field or the receiver's not open. Yeah, they're not open.
Yeah, it's Xavier Hutchinson and John Mechie. They're not getting open.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not. Yeah.
Are there a lot of – I don't remember a lot of plays where CJ's back there and he's just patting the ball waiting for guys to get open. There haven't been a lot of those, mainly because those 5 guys up front couldn't do nothing. Did you turn on last year's game? Were you watching a 2023 game instead?
I feel like this Texans team is starting to feel a lot like the 2018 Texans in Deshaun Watson's second year. It's feeling like I'm kind of getting that vibe, and I just remember O'Brien used to be so pissed at us, and he would be like, "We won. We found ways to win, and y'all are still critical. It's really hard to win, and all this talk about that. We're winning, and they went 11-5, and then they got their ass kicked in the playoffs, and it's like, okay, like, are you gonna like? Do you feel like maybe we kind of saw something that this team was like a misleading 11-5, like the Texans right now, and look, there's chance at improvement. Like I think you have the elite pieces to where it's not a lost cause season. Like it's frustrating. It's a frustrating 6-3, and the expectations are high. And D'Amico Ryans and Nick Caserio, despite all the bitching, they deserve a lot of credit for the expectations being where they are. But it does feel a lot 2018-ish, where D'Amico Ryans is, assuming, you are what your record says it is and all that type of stuff. But you look at it and you say, well, you got a +1 point differential. Everyone else in the playoff picture has a really high point differential. You have by far the worst of all the teams in the playoff picture. You easily could be, if we're being honest, 2-7. I know good teams find ways to win and all that. You could be 2-7. Bills point differential again, +84 in 8 games. Steelers +68 in 8. Chiefs +50 in 7. Denver +53 in 8. Ravens +33 in 8, and Chargers +41 in 7. That's the playoff picture right there. So you're telling us, yeah, it's hard to win in the NFL. You're winning games, but there are some context clues that lead you to believe that the ceiling is a little bit lower than we think. It's the same thing that O'Brien was saying. And like that team as well, you have a quarterback who is called upon to just handle pressure. It's not we're going to limit pressure. It's not we're going to call a game plan to keep you from getting your ass kicked. And I remember in that 2018 season, Deshaun Watson just got his ass kicked terribly against Dallas. And I actually asked O'Brien, I said, hey, Bill, do you think about protecting Deshaun Watson? He said, I don't know. And Deshaun Watson got roughed up. He had to take a bus to Jacksonville because he was getting so roughed up because they weren't really handling that. But this is kind of a misleading 6-3. Now, the good news is I think the elite pieces that you have are such to where we can look back at this and say this wasn't even when this team peaked. I do think they have the potential to peak, but DeMeco Ryans is going to have to get as much out of his offensive staff as he's giving the defense, because right now, and I don't know if that guarantees success, but Bobby Slowick is going to have to elevate his coaching level to what DeMeco Ryans and Matt Burke are if this team's going to have any chance in hell. Because if the Texans on defense had the same problems or similar problems with what they have on offense, I think DeMeco would be able to fix it. I don't know that this offensive staff and this offensive line personnel is capable, but they remind me a lot of, in CJ Stroud's second year, of what Deshaun Watson's team was his second year. There are a lot of similarities there. A lot.
No, you're spot on with so much of that, and I still have, to your point, a belief that there's a chance they can get something going on offense and get back to something that resembles what the rest of the league can perpetrate on offense on a consistent basis. I do believe that. It's just going to be very hard for them to do it, but it's not impossible. Now, maybe 3 weeks from now, we're sitting here and we're having a conversation like, yeah, it feels impossible. It's not impossible that they get it going. They're going to get Nico Collins back. They should be exploring the trade market for help on offense at wherever you want to find help on offense. Like, there's a path to getting back to passing game relevancy. And if they do that, then the rushing attack's going to be even better. It's already a really solid rushing attack, but then the rushing attack's going to be even better. And you can sort of see, okay, they get some things going, but it really is teetering on disaster with the way that this offensive line's playing. And if they keep putting that offensive line out there, then you will see disaster.
Yeah. And we'll see how it shapes up and how it looks. I will say this though, and this is kind of the problem for the Texans right now. I know a lot of fans don't want to hear this. I think you can moonwalk into an AFC South title and figure stuff out. I don't think like the 2018 team was kind of threatened by Indianapolis, and Indianapolis started peaking at the right time and they got hot and they ended up ending your season. I don't see that team in the AFC South really threatening you, but you do have a Detroit Lions team that is really, really good. Their point differentials plus 100, you're plus 1, and they've played 7 games. You've played 9. You got them on Sunday night, which isn't ideal. Although I think DeMeco's defense can step up and figure something out against that offense, or at least slow them down. I do have confidence in that, depending on what's up with Will Anderson. But then you got Dallas, and I know Dallas is an easy target, but you got that. So you got a tough road ahead. But this just reminds me a lot at this point, a hell of a lot of that 2018 team in Deshaun's second year with CJ. And CJ also, here's the other thing that we're not talking about. We can get to this in a little bit. CJ Stroud looks kind of beat down and kind of defeated, and it seems like his spirits kind of crushed.
It's not easy, is what he said. When he's how do you when you're dealing with this spread, it's not easy. It's not easy.
And I think we can all agree. We'll see what happens.
I will say, Landry, I feel like they had to make a change, obviously, in Indianapolis. I do feel like part of that change is they felt like, yeah, we lost to Houston. We've lost to them twice. we don't think that they're going to run away with this thing. Let's play the guy that's better at quarterback and try to hang around in this thing. I do believe that goes into the decision to go to Joe Flacco.
So you think the Colts saw the Texans and said, all right, this team ain't running away. We can, if we play.
Absolutely. Because if that was the Chiefs, they maybe don't make this. But you go to Flacco because you believe you have a chance to do something this season. And I feel like coming out of the Texans game, they looked around and said, if we just get better quarterback play, we beat those guys that day. We beat those guys the first game. And we've got a rough stretch here the next month. If we can cobble something together, they have issues, we can catch them. I do believe that the move to Flacco was in part because they believe they can catch the Texans.
Now that's
and they finish with an easy final 3 weeks. So if they're close, they finish with Tennessee, New York, and Jacksonville. So if they're close, they're going 3-0, and the Texans finish with Kansas City, Baltimore 4 days later, and Tennessee.
Well, I'll be damned. I started this out comparing it to 2018. You're basically
it is 2018.
Huh?
It is 2018. Yeah.
Well, hopefully Joe Flacco doesn't end your season the way Andrew Luck did. This thing took a hell of a turn.
Yep.
Next question I have about this whole situation with the Texans. How much is CJ Stroud struggling? How much blame does CJ Stroud deserve for the way in which this is playing? I don't want to be an apologist, but I just kind of sympathize with what he's going through right now. Am I being too light on CJ?
I mean, if I'm playing like a assign the blame game, like less than 15%, like maybe that might even be too high. I'm sorry, CJ. I feel bad. That's too high. 7%. I'm assigning 7% of the blame to CJ Stroud.
I don't know. Like I feel like
that might be too high.
He should have been sacked. I feel like he should have been sacked at least 12 times yesterday.
You really I said this last week about the Colts game. There's about 5 quarterbacks that you could have had that could have won that football game because you needed to be very mobile. You needed there's 25 quarterbacks that would have been sacked 16 times yesterday. And he only sacked 8 times is a miracle.
Yeah, it is only. It is only. How much blame do you think that D'Amico deserves?
Less than the line and less than Slowick, but more than CJ Stroud.
Do you think he needs to trust Slowick less at this point? Because one of the things that he said was that he wanted to trust his coaches more. That was one of the things he wanted to work on. Do you think maybe he needs to trust them less?
Yes. When left to his own devices, he calls a halfback pass from the 10-yard line.
Let's get into that. What are the thoughts on the Mixon trick play? D'Amico said if it works, then we're talking about it. Come on, bro.
That's bad. It's bad process.
CJ Stroud.
It's bad process. I agree. Put the ball in Joe Mixon's hands. Don't have him throw it.
Well, this is what you're doing, like with that play. And I don't think people are dumb. I don't know how many people would have agreed to run that play. You're taking the ball out of your quarterback's hands, who's awesome, and you're taking the ball out of Joe Mixon's hands, basically. Like, I know it's in his hands, but he's not doing what he's good at, what he's great at.
You're not asking Joe Mixon to run the ball, which is what he's the best at. He's one of the best in the NFL. He's one of the best running backs in football. So let's have him throw it.
Well, also, like, you used to see like LaDainian Tomlinson throw the ball a lot, but it was like there was a threat of a run. Like there was no threat of a real run there for Joe Mixon.
Yeah, and he threw it to Antonio Gates. He didn't throw it to Phillip Rivers.
Damn, they did.
We didn't get the look we wanted. What look was that? The one where they forget to cover the quarterback?
How many times are they going to say that? Like, I keep hearing that. That's the same thing they said in Green Bay. They said, we didn't get the look that we wanted. And it's like, well, do y'all have like an audible or something? Like, Bobby Slowick against Green Bay said they didn't run the defense we thought they were going to run. Well, Like, is there it like do you ever go to the offensive line and say, hey, this isn't here, we're going to adjust? We didn't get the look we running, but you ran the play anyways.
How many times does DeMeco Ryans talk about if we do what we need to do, it doesn't matter what the other team does? And that's primarily about defense when he talks about that. Because like you ask about like Drake May, he's like, well, it doesn't really matter what Drake May does. Like if we play defense the way we want to play defense, it's going to work. How come that doesn't apply to offense? Well, if we do what we do, they can't stop us. No, Bobby Slowick needs things to be perfect for him to call a play in a critical situation. Like, yeah, actually, they need to not cover CJ for that play to work. So when they covered CJ, we were screwed.
Mo Heavy, we're about to get out of here. Appreciate everyone for coming through. Super chat, all that. Not fun, but we get a little bit of a break, and then we get the Lions. I'm going to Las Vegas, baby. Isn't it crazy? 1 year our passing is good, rushing, and now it's the opposite. It is pretty weird. GC says, I don't even see us getting 10 wins anymore. Goodness gracious. That's kind of dramatic. I think they'll get 10 wins.
I mean, I mean, Baltimore, Kansas City, and Detroit, those would be losses for me right now. Yeah. Dallas is a bit of a toss-up. You can beat the Jags. You can beat the Titans twice. I'm missing a game in there. Miami off the bye. They should be able to beat them.
Yeah.
Although things aren't perfect in Miami, and they can still move the ball through the air.
Yeah, we'll see. Right now, it still stings a little bit. We got to sleep on it. This is Reaction Monday/Friday. Appreciate y'all for coming through. We love you very much. We love you in the chat.
Great show today, guys. You guys did a great job in the comment section.
Thank y'all so much for riding along. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together.
Eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans again soon.